Oh.
I think we're live to finally get an intro song. That's awesome. What's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker. This is WPwatercooler episode.
And now we have to pay royalty for it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, the copyright on that.
Today we are going to be talking about WordPress theme customizer, the
Laying down
customizer,
some.
the customizer. We're going to go around the room real quick and get everyone introduced. Man, I am tongue-tied today. Chris, tell us what's up, sir.
Me too.
My name's Chris Thumma. I'm the CTO of a company called Crowd Favorite, where we do WordPress work. I also run the San Diego WordPress meetup here in North County, and I blog over at christhumma.com.
Awesome. George, will Jetpack run on O2?
Well, Jetpack provides genericons which are required for O2 to run, but you can also just use Mika Epstein's genericon plugin to add them if you'd rather. Anyway, I'm George. I work for Automattic. I run the team that builds Jetpack and help run my local WordPress community and do all sorts of shiny things. And off to say.
Yo, what's up? My name's Say. Wait, that's a super topical issue right now. Sorry, I'm not gonna do that. Hi, I'm Say. I do WordPress stuff, teach WordPress, make WordPress, preach WordPress at Shayward Media on all the things.
Say, real quick, I want you to tap the top of that microphone real fast. Thank you. All right. Steve.
I'm Steve Zehngut. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup. Oh.
Wait, I wanted to prove that microphone does nothing at all during the podcast.
Neither end.
Suzette, tell us about
Hello, everybody. I am Suzette Franck. I am a teacher with Girl Develop It, and I love WordPress.
Awesome. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me Jason Tucker on Twitter and WPmedia.pro on the website. Go check that out. So, Steve, I always try to, get you to kind of freak out a little bit here. You're in the back.
Wait, why would Steve freak out?
Go nuts.
Chris is already freaked out. We have Chris freaking out.
Okay, tell me why I'm about to freak out.
Well, because we're going to talk about the customizer.
Okay.
Wait, I want to talk about this. Okay, so I actually feel kind of responsible for this because 2 years ago at WordCamp San Francisco, I raised my hand during the State of the WordPress talk and asked Mr. Matt Mullenweg if he was going to standardize theme options because of all the madness and all the theme options panels everywhere. To which he didn't really have much of an answer, but Lance, something Illit, Willett. I can only remember the last half of his name. Lance.
It's Ilio.
He found me later and told me all about the customizer and then how everything was starting. They were starting to really push the customizer, and that the customizer was going to be the home for all of the theme options panels and things like that in the standard world. And now
this is why we should make the distinction between causation, correlation, and completely unrelated.
Okay, I'm not saying it's actually my fault. I'm just saying.
When Say's like, I feel kind of responsible.
No, I think this is like the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah,
I ate a peanut butter sandwich, and then
customizer came out.
Look,
It's all your fault.
Sunglasses are here, and there are no tigers in this room, so that means these sunglasses are tiger preventers.
Hashtag blame Say.
Hashtag Simpsons. Hashtag Lisa forever.
In case you guys didn't know, we discovered earlier today that Say grew up in the mountains without any friends. So,
in a big golf
I heard
course.
friends, they just weren't real.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, exactly. So take that what you will.
Yeah, are you real? Can I touch you?
That show is so already.
So let's talk about the customizer. The when theme stuff started happening in the customizer, I think most people were like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Recently, there was an announcement that all the themes that were going onto the .org repository had all the new ones had to support and function with the customizer, and the ones that were already there had a 6-month window to get fully updated.
So,
and I think that's
to have a customizer only, not even to have like they can only have their theme options in customizer, no theme options panels.
So for our newbies that are watching the show, maybe we should explain what the customizer is.
Yeah, that might be good.
Suzette,
You
would you like to take that?
you got problems.
If you've ever used WordPress before, what you know is there are essentially two sides to WordPress: the part that other people see, the public sees of the website, and then there's a back-end admin interface. And what would normally happen up until the release of the customizer a couple years ago was that you would work in the admin to do things, but you wouldn't know what it looked like. And you would hit publish or set some setting for a widget, and then you'd have to load up the front end to see what you got, right? And so it was a dynamic of you're designing or writing or authoring or doing something in one space, configuring one space, and then viewing it in another. And the customizer is an option that allows people to have a place where they're editing and making changes and adjustments while seeing those transformations live on the front end of the site. That's the core of what the customizer is.
Yeah, live previewing of modifications of the visual aspects of your theme.
But it also allows developers, as they're developing a theme, to put options in that panel, right, that are specific to that theme, right? So I just want to clarify so that we know what we're talking about today, because we're going to get a little developer-y.
By default,
I'll keep it simple. Don't worry.
So by default, there are some things that the customizer ships with by default. By default.
Site title, tagline.
Nah. Anyway,
by default, can you explain that?
Site title, tagline. If themes support it, you can change your header image, background color, all sorts of extra options.
Upload a logo. No.
And now widgets are all up in there.
And so one of the proposals that was put in a couple weeks ago was to introduce a panel to let folks modify and add new menus to their site and change the placement of menus from the customizer. The problem is that when they proposed adding this thing to the customizer, they added a little bit of text at the end that said, and we're also going to recommend that in a couple of releases we drop the admin screen for menus and make everyone use the customizer instead. This has since been clarified that that's not actually going to happen necessarily in any point in the near future, if ever.
Because we spoke. Chris actually spoke for us.
Actually, to be clear, I'm pretty sure that the reason it was never going to happen is because it was never actually going to happen. So it was.
Yes. This was just a proposal from one person that mentioned it originally.
Okay.
Yeah, so to be fair,
for everything.
I think the way I would shape that story is to say, actually, even before the menu piece, there was this announcement that all new themes would have to do all their settings in the customizer, and old themes would have to update their themes within a 6-month period to get in the customizer. And that started creating, up until that moment, people had said, customizer is either cool or it's not, I can live with it or I don't have to, and it's just like, okay. The moment that first announcement came out, I think some people were surprised, especially theme developers who had either many themes or a entrenched customer base, and they were trying to figure out, well, I have now 5 or 6 months to redo everything, right? So that's the first time I think people felt a little bit like this customizer may be going out of control. This kind of, it was an interesting idea, but now it's turning into the rigid standard. When people added widgets to it, some response was, well, hey, this feels like you might be jamming too much in here. You're going to have a lot of little back and forth. So people started with a little bit more angst. And then, as George mentioned, when the menu piece came out and it said, by the way, we're going to kill the old one, which wasn't true. It was a mistake. It probably shouldn't have just been written. But because of that, right, then I think people started freaking out, like going, okay, this customizer's taking over, and we're shoving things in there that maybe don't even need to be there. Hence the.
It's all right. Listen, it feels like you're jamming too much in here.
Chris just wants to know, when are they going to put in the post editor into the customizer? That's
when
what
are they
we
going
want.
to put jetpack settings into the customizer?
That's actually a separate
know.
plugin called front-end editing.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Composer Conductor, isn't that what Matt Medeiros' plugin does? Right? It lets you create text for widgets and other placements of the page in the little customizer. So
Okay,
people have started playing with that.
So let's go back a minute. Does this apply to premium themes?
Not if they're not by requirement.
Now I'm
there
asking
are no
because
requirements
if
on
you're using a Woo theme, that has its own pretty extensive customization panels.
Yeah, but that's now owned by Automattic, so that's gonna go the way of Jetpack and Customizer.
I chose my example very carefully.
You're so smart, Steve. But so, what do you think? Do you think they're gonna There's a lot of
I
stuff.
don't know how you can. I don't know how you could jam that much stuff into the customizer, right?
A lot of practice and extensive amounts of lubrication. Whiskey, guys, whiskey is what I meant by that.
Whiskey will not lubricate anything.
I can't wait to see
Oh, yes, it will. Oh, yes.
I cannot wait to see the tweets from this episode. Anyway, if you're using a Woo theme, there's a ton of stuff in their customization panels. And their customization panel is its own entity. It's its own beast. It gets
the Woo framework.
It's its own framework. It gets its own updates by itself. Yeah. I can't see how all that stuff fits in the customizer.
See, this is the thing. The customizer is supposed to be about, to me, just really about look. Really, it's like the most basic, it started with the header image and the background color, and like I like it when, for example, some of the Google font plugins put typography in there. That type of stuff makes sense. As soon as they added the widgets in there, I actually, because now if you're on the front end and you go from the admin bar to the widgets, it takes you right to the customizer instead of to the widget admin menu, which I literally cannot deal with widgets in there. It's like you're like 3 menus in, and then it's just the UI is just really clunky.
You have to have a lot of horizontal real estate.
You do,
which
most people don't, and a lot of, for example, my clients are using Surfaces or iPads even, and it's like this is or just small laptops in general, and there's just no more room, so you can't even actually see what it looks like because your screen's this big. So then once you go back to your normal screen, it's like this, and so it doesn't look the same anyway. You're basically like optimizing for your mobile view in the widget.
So I think there's another dynamic that's going on though, right? And this was hinted at as we were commenting and talking about this topic, and that is that the customizer is new code, right? It is clean code, it is JavaScript based, there's an API, there's all this stuff you can do with it. Some of the other parts of WordPress, like the menu page, menu admin, is old code, old structure, and struggles to be performant when there's a ton of menu items, but on top of that, it's hard to get someone to say, I want to dig through all this and enhance it, fix it, tweak it, adjust it, when I can do it so much easier in the customizer. So I think there's another narrative going on for developers that is separate from everything else we're dealing with, right? So you're sitting here talking about a customer dynamic, and by all means, there are definitely people who are very customer-centric, who are contributors, who are thinking this through, but there are others who are developer-centric, who are looking at this saying, this is really hard to solve in one of the backend admin pages, but a lot easier in the customizer. So because it's easier,
because it's better code,
let's put it here. And that is not a WordPress problem. That has been a ongoing developer dynamic for 40 years, right? Well, it's easier over here than to do over here. Let's just do it over here. And you don't think through, okay, what's the full impact of that for everyone, right?
And that's really important because here's the thing about WordPress. Most of the people using it are not developers. Most of the people using it are DIY people and don't have any help whatsoever. So all of a sudden you're changing these super core things. It really throws people for a loop. I know, Chris, you're looking at it from a training people on an enterprise level, but also just on an individual small business or an individual blogger level, they're already having to stay so up on WordPress, and then you change the UI so completely. I think it really, I mean, I have to be honest, like I get a lot of people that are moving towards Squarespace and that direction, and it's starting to almost become easier, which seems weird because WordPress should be getting easier to use, not more difficult to use. And I think at this point it's actually kind of taking a bit of a fork that's starting to concern me a little bit, honestly.
So the thing about Squarespace is that they have the customizer panel, right? It's just that while they have it there, right, there's other editing that's happening that is actually on the screen, right? So you're actually editing the menu or whatever on the page, not in a little sidebar window. And that's a metaphor that can work, and we have people, contributors, who are working on front-end editing. So I think these things are happening. Whenever you have volunteers who are writing code and contributing their time, I think you have this dynamic where you can't get everything you want all launched in all at the same time. So it just creeps in little bits and steps. Unfortunately, the messaging around the proposal, around the menu, was written in such a way that it caused a lot more angst and frustration than it probably needed to, and they've tried to repair that, right? But there's still the bigger question of how do we get more people to contribute and get involved so that we can accelerate the move through this. It's like having a bad haircut, right? You have a short haircut, it looks fine. When it's long, it looks fine. But the in-between, right? You're like, my hair is all over the place and I can't manage it. You start wearing hats all the time. I think
I'm in that stage right now.
Right. I think we're in that stage when it comes to WordPress and front-end editing kind of usability stuff.
We are totally in the bad haircut phase. We have weird bangs, and they need to grow out. That's what's going on. But I think that this is kind of a crux time because there are other competitors that are happening, and I think what you're talking about, that distancing from, because it's volunteers, and I know WordPress does everything, the organization, and with WordCamps, everyone's always reaching out. But I think the fact that it's just developers doing the developing, and we talked about this last year at the summit also, that people feel like if they're just contributing, like myself, if I was contributing from a let me speak for the user standpoint, like I don't even know how to engage in that, and I'm involved in WordPress, and or how to make an argument against saying, okay, well, this isn't good for the user, but it's great for code, so can we slow it down? Like there's a dialogue that's missing. There's an update, like. And the reality
is, it is happening. The dialogue is happening.
It's just happening after the fact. Once they've announced it, once they've created it, then we start having that conversation on the internet and in Facebook groups.
Yeah, when you see the proposals, it feels like I'm surprised, right? So if you're a developer, or even if you're not a developer, but you're highly engaged in the community, make.wordpress.com is a place where you can even just subscribe to all the notes of all the teams that are meeting and talking, so that you're not surprised by these things, right?
Well, I mean, this was first listed on WP Tavern in December. It's June, and we're all just starting to talk about it. So, actually, it's trickled out pretty far.
That's because one person saw it and went, "Oh no!" and then they all started tweeting about it. I mean, that's kind of what happened.
So, Chris shaped people.
The what?
You guide the discussion. What can I say?
No.
Until Chris talks about it, no one's talking about it.
I wanted to talk about make.training a little bit.
Take the floor.
I wanted to talk about make.training a little bit. I'm in the make.training, and we were asked to actually make what we do is we create lesson plans for people to give at meetups or in classrooms. So we were asked to create, I forgot by who, by somebody important, to create a user manual on how to teach people to use the customizer. So I'm doing that part of it. So that should be out soon, I hope. But there's a lot of people in make.training, and we need more help to write lesson plans for teachers.
Yeah, I mean, that's still, and this is a dilemma of open source, this is a dilemma of user education, and when you've got such proliferation like what WordPress has, and anyone, some random person by themselves can just download it and use it, you can't be responsible for every user understanding or knowing what's happening. Everyone, because it's that kind of DIY software, you're responsible for, keeping yourself current. The problem is just when that current, that responsibility becomes like a job. Like it makes sense for those of us here to stay updated on Make and to follow WP Tavern and to stay on top of all that stuff. But for a user to stay on top of all that stuff, in addition to trying to figure out the latest social media and what the hell Periscope is and whatever's going on, it's overwhelming for them.
That's very specific.
You like how I threw that in there? Periscope. But so I think that what's happening is we're putting a lot of burden on our user to be educated. And I think that that's the issue, because while that's great, it's not necessarily totally realistic. Like, and even making training modules for people at WordCamps, you're still getting such a small percentage of people, of users who are going to WordCamps to get that training, that the disconnect between what's actually happening in the real world and what we're talking about happening as far as training and education goes, there's a big, giant gap there.
So isn't part of the solution there some sort of consistency? And isn't that what the customizer is supposed to be solving, right? And the consistency I'm talking about is from theme to theme. As you go from theme to theme, part of the problem with WordPress, and I hear this from my clients and I hear this from my friends, is they say, well, WordPress is difficult. And when I actually look at what their problem is, right, what they're talking about is some weird theme setting in the specific theme, or some plugin setting that they're using is off. The UI is off, the UX is weird, exactly. Right? Yeah. So isn't the customizer an attempt to standardize?
It is, and that's why it is a good thing. We're in a spot where we're navigating through the complexities of how you get everything there, right? How you get standard across the board to make it easy, right? But it is by volunteers, which means more people have to be involved in a lot of different capacities so that we can get through that bad hair part and get to the part where the bangs are grown out and things look good.
Oh, okay, but we're always going to be in some form of that bad haircut phase, right?
I don't think so.
Wait, let me finish. Hang on a second. Because even though the customizer is a good step in the right direction, it's got some standards in place, it's still open source. It's got an API. I'm developing a theme in it right now, and not all developers are created equally. So even though it's got some standards, it's open for me to make UI mistakes, or UI flaws, or weird UX.
You're four little panels in and changing something, and then in UI, UX, whatever, in menus, you're not supposed to go more than 3 panels in. Well, some of these widgets, I'm already like 12 panels in on the customizer.
As a developer, I have the freedom to do that if I choose.
As a crappy developer, you do have the freedom to do that.
You're not the
crappy developer.
I just assumed I was the crappy developer.
One has the freedom to do that, not you.
It's all right. It's all right. So, I've made some really bad code in my time.
So what about we talked a little bit about it, but what about the idea of getting people that are doing either the ThemeForest type themes, the premium type themes, the ones that have built their own infrastructure in place to kind of build these very specific admin panels? Are we wanting them to put the 500 different dials and
I don't think, again, I'm going to bring this full circle, I don't think you could jam it in there.
Well, and some of it I don't think you should. I mean, the customizer is meant to let
jam
you
it in
see.
there, but should you jam it in there? That's really.
I mean, here's the thing: the customizer is made to let you see the immediate effects of what happens when you change something. A lot of backend options, when you change it, will not have an immediate effect on what the front end of your site looks like.
Right.
So if we put those in the customizer, there's no benefit over having them on the back end. So a lot of this stuff, I would say, let's recommend as a recommendation level best practices thing, that if something's going to be simple and immediate effect, put it in the customizer so folks can get that benefit from it. And then if they have other things controls what your RSS feeds look like, or something absolutely off the wall like that they're not going to see in the customizer, sure, let that be on the back end, because that's the most logical place for it to live.
So playing devil's advocate here, it's actually what you just described is being able to do menus and being able to do widgets, because you want to be able to see what that looks like. The problem is that the interface, the actual interface, I've seen this happen a few times on themes, where the theme will be in a responsive state because I don't have enough real estate on my screen, and I have to essentially hold down command minus 500 times in order to get the screen fully maxed out as far as I can. So I can look at the customizer and say,
that's what it's gonna look like.
That now, but look, it does look this way.
We all need a 50-inch monitor on our desk.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, because I think what we're really, upset. I don't know that we're necessarily upset, but what my qualm with this whole situation is not necessarily that there's something going on in the menus that is in the customizer. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with the UI. Those panels are tiny. They fly out another panel. It's not good design for figuring out something that you're viewing on the front end, which, if that is the entire point, is negating its own point. So that's what I think the real problem is with it. And I understand that.
And I want to bring it back around to one point, which is to say doesn't like it, but if you remember, 2 years ago, Say is the one that came up with the idea. So the world we're living in is one Say doesn't like, but was started by Say. I just wanted to make sure we were clear and wrap that around.
That's what happens when you grow up on a mountain.
Here's the thing, right? But I didn't say in that question if there was going to be, everything was going to get shoved in the customizer. That was not even really my...
I think it was jammed.
Jammed, yes. Thank you, Suzette. Yeah.
That's not my thing. I wasn't even focusing on the customizer because, 2 years ago, that wasn't even necessarily a big deal.
I think this whole realm would be easier if we use terms like gently placed instead of jammed or shoved, right? Because it doesn't feel as attacking to the volunteer who's writing code and is spending all their hours, and then you come along and you're like jam and shove. But if we said thank you for gently placing menus in the customizer, however, we do feel it's slightly restricted in space, that feels like a different message.
I just learned so much about you and your interpersonal relationships. It's creepy.
How about wedged? Can we go with wedged?
I feel like I just learned a lot about you. And I feel a little dirty.
Moving on.
As we start wrapping up, I want to recommend a little bit of further reading for anyone curious to continue on this. Just under a year ago, Matt Weeb on his personal site, and the link will be in the show notes, wrote a blog post called Evolving the Customizer, where he's talking about some of the current issues and a path forward for the customizer. And this should carry a little bit of extra weight because he had been working on the WordPress.com version of the customizer for quite a while and pushing it in a different direction than the core version, which has since merged back to the core version. So there's a lot of really good thoughts there about possible directions that the customizer should be going. And
super developer heavy.
And if you're very passionate about the customizer and where WordPress will go in the future, get involved. Speak up, say a piece. If you can't contribute code, that's fine.
We're not talking about contributing code, but where, for example, would one be on, is it like a Slack channel? Where would this hypothetical person go to know that the conversation about the customizer is happening? Where is that conversation?
So you're going to want to follow a lot of the make.wordpress.org subblogs. You're probably going to want to follow UI and core, and just keep an ear to the ground. As things happen, there will be tweets, there will be discussions, there will be blog posts. So,
and the thing is, though, is when those blog posts and things start coming out, it really does feel like it's done. Like, it even to me feels right now like, I mean, they made the decision, right, last week, because the menu is going in the customizer in 4.2. That's happening. It's not getting pulled out of the main admin, but it's going into 4.2. Like, I feel that once the information gets out there, it's being announced as opposed to being discussed. So you're saying follow the blogs. What does that mean to someone? Like, someone's like, I have an opinion. I work a lot with users. Following the blogs is then what? I'm commenting on a blog. There's no dialogue there.
Yep. You're commenting, and that is part of the way you do a dialogue, right? It's asynchronous because people are all over the world, and so what happens is you see it, they write something, it gets emailed to you, you read it, and then you say, let me go reply, you log in and reply, and that's part of the dialogue.
And mind you, that's the only way in which all of the people that are working on this project interact with one another, either via that method or on Slack.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Isn't Slack really where that conversation is happening, not on blogs with comments?
It is, but it's also the make.wordpress.org sites. A great Twitter account to follow is WPMake. It's an unofficial feed, but it pulls in pretty much all the blog posts from all the different Make blogs and just tweets out links when they happen.
Follow.
Which is probably a ton.
That's good to know. It's that I'm really my main concern, and we're almost done. But so in this conversation, and again, it's easy for us who are involved to get more involved, and I definitely think we all do that to a certain degree. But I think that it is also really important to keep the user in mind, and I think that is so often just left behind. I don't know. We need to be user advocates. I'm going to start being a user advocate.
For the users.
For the users, by
You
the
should
users.
join the training team on Make, say. I really think so. You have a lot of good input.
Yeah, jam in all of my input. Let's jam
Just
in.
like Tron, we fight for the user.
All right, Jason, jam that stop broadcast button.
Please,
All right.
jam the stop button.
Gently press it.
Make sure you go to our
Jam it right up in there.
This is the
don't make
ultimate
me-
difference between Steve and Chris.
Don't
It's right there. If you ever wanted to know,
Oh.
that's it.
I'm muting all of you. All of you are being muted.
What's
I'm done with you
jamming?
guys.
As we
When's-
should.
Jamming.
Make sure you go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com and click the links there. Hey, Steve, you're not muted.
Oh,
Stop
that was
laughing
a
at me.
big mistake on your part.
Jam your like
Push
button.
the button, Jason.
Guys, later, bye.